Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Knuckles the Echidna here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of the Mega Man Marathon. And ladies and gentlemen, speaking of which, welcome back to more Let's Play of Mega Man 9 for the Nintendo WiiWare, Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, and PC Steam version. I'm presuming that much. So last time, we actually did manage to tackle through all 8 Robot Masters by the forms of Concrete Man, Jaw Man, Hornet Man, Tornado Man, Pluck Man, Galaxy Man, Magma Man, and, of course, Splash Woman. So today for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the big finale of the game already. Yeah, at least ever since in Mega Man 6, that we're going to be taking on Dr. Wily's castle as per usual. In fact, the actual introduction of the forms of Dr. Wily's fortress is ripped right out of Mega Man 2, which I personally don't mind about it at all, because I found it a very pleasant surprise altogether. So, here we go, let's get this thing going by the forms of, well, Dr. Wily Stage 1. So even then though, that we could potentially try to able to actually just get on with this kinds of stuff like right here. So, expecting for this match, and even then though, yeah. When it comes to the Wily stages in Mega Man 9, there's only 2 particular sections where I just managed to not a big huge fan of. Like, we'll get to that as soon as we get to the later portion of this stage, and especially noticeable by the forms of the second stage of Dr. Wily's castle, so even then, we'll get to that shortly afterwards. So, but I digress. So we got these familiar enemies ever since the past few stages, including this particular, robot right there, that, he managed to able to actually tilt the actual shield all the way down to the floor, and then basically you have to time your shots well enough until when he drops the shield down, and then that way you could potentially try to able to actually just to shoot him and kill him. So that's all there is to know. So yeah, this is what the main gimmick about the forms of this particular section right there is the fact that one thing I will admit though right away, it's not that huge problem right there. But in the beginning portion of Wily Stage 1, you have to use the Tornado Blow to keep these platforms moving. And if you run out of them, you have to grind for weapon energy, and if you use the weapon too many times. So even then though, personally I don't mind about it too much though, I will admit though right away. But it's just one of those things, how the fact that you'd pretty much need to save your weapon energy before you're able to actually move on to the next section throughout. So, it's one of those things guys, it's one of those things. So, anyway. Of course, I could potentially try to able to actually go after more of those weapon energy before the forms of trying to deal with the rest, but I'm pretty sure I didn't do that right, so even then, I think the reason being for that is because, well, we just want to able to actually just move on to the next game, or the last game before we get into Mega Man 11, as soon as one of the forms of the demo version of Mega Man 11 will come out during next month, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So, I should probably point things out right away, is that unfortunately Sega Ages, by the forms of, Shining Force 4, and especially noticeable with the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog, with the forms of the Nintendo Switch, unfortunately though, the Sega Ages has been delayed until next month, so, kind of a shame really, but even then I don't mind about just waiting for a couple of days worth noting for, so even then though, that's all I can really think about. Because originally they're trying to able to release the Sega Ages in the forms of this month, but unfortunately it's gone delayed due to how the fact that I'm presuming they need to add some more features and stuff like that, I'm presuming for this matter, but I don't know about that just yet, so yeah, that's what I can think about that for the time. And also we got these instant death lasers, as you can see right there, ever since during the likes of Mega Man stage. And you need to be right on with that specific stuff, especially this point, if you manage to able to use the rush coil. And then that way you could potentially try to make your way yourselves there. There's also the energy tank right there, which I'm probably not going to go after for, because it might be a little bit more nerve-wracking experience altogether. And what makes it a little bit of a bummer is the fact that Hornet's Chaser does not even go after these energy tanks. So even then though we have to purposely, we need to grab this thing on foot. So that's one thing I need to probably point things out right away, but still. I do really like the Dr. Wily's castle theme in this game, because even then it just feels somewhat a little bit more catchy though. Excuse me. And this is the reason why we need to use Rush Jet from here, and then that way we could potentially try to bypass those spikes completely, and as a result, then, yeah, that's what I can really think about that for the time. So, anyways, let's kill these little plum tree looking robot enemies. So even then though, we could potentially try to able to actually bypass through everything. And let's go ahead and keep on revealing Tornado Blow, in case if we're about to need some until later down the road. And we got this familiar enemy yet again, and hopefully it's not too bad, not too shabby either. So, yeah, I guess there's not much else I can really say about today for this point, folks. I mean, today was actually forms of the 27th of August, 2018, and I might as well kill myself for that particular boss fight, as you can see right there. Just because of how the fact that there's no way I can able to actually deal with this boss fight, unless if I use one of my energy tanks for my disposal, and then no way I can able to actually deal with this next boss in the forms of, well, the first boss in Dr. Wily's castle stages. So, this is the main boss, the first boss in the first stage in the Dr. Wily's castle. We have Spike Pushers. What they do is the fact that they're trying to able to use their projectiles, and then manage to able to, you know, trying to get these spikes back at you. But here's the thing though, is the fact that those spike balls are instant death, so you have to watch out for those. And then if you do not able to aim your shots just well enough, then you're probably going to kill yourself and you have to redo the whole entire fight again. So, yeah, that could be extremely dangerous though, even for this boss fight alone. And I think it's about time to able to use my energy tanks right there. In fact, I've only got 4 of them left, and I think I'll save the mystery tank when we get to the very end of the game. So, in case if you're probably wondering, because of you know. So as long as you're able to actually deal with all 4 of them, then you would able to deal with this just fine. But you just have to be very cautious with those spike balls in general, because man, that can really hurt you so much. Even they instantly kills you. Which also doesn't help because of how the fact that if you ever play as Proto Man in Mega Man 9, that he'll also manage to able to get instant killed by the forms of spikes in general. So even then, because of that though, that between those robot masters in mine, they always attempt to get killed with spikes every single time. So, although excluding bottomless pits, don't forget. So, here we go with Dr. Wily Stage 2. Now, I remember this one thing that a lot of people seem to have trouble with, and that will have to be the forms of how the fact that, well, we'll get to that as soon as we're able to actually continue exploring this place. So, for the most part though, we'll go ahead and get ourselves my extra life back after managed to kill myself by the forms of the Spike Pushers. So even then though, that my life's count is now, as you expected, it's all the way up to 9. So, but however though, you cannot able to actually get your lives count up to 10 though, on the other hand though, because that's the only minimum of lives you can only get. So, you know, just like how it does in the previous Mega Man games at this point in time. Well, at least, for more accurately, the forms of ever since Mega Man 3 almost. So, anyway, so let's use Rush Coil from here, and totally trying to able to skip the entire platforming sequence noticing, which I'm very grateful how the fact that I'm very glad also because of how the fact that, well, Rush Coil and Rush Jet are still once again super useful. The only Rush ability they did not make a return here, and that was the forms of Rush Marine, which I don't know why that is, but even though no, that could be some little bit more of an odyssey for any kinds of stuff, so. And also that, I don't think there's any super adapters introduced in this game either, unlike the forms of Mega Man 7. Well, the super adapter anyway, so. Anyways though, oh god, we got these enemies there. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure every time whenever I first saw about this, and then I have to able to actually just leave off screen, but it turns out they're creating the invisible blocks, or in this case the invisible pitfalls. What was this? Castlevania 2 Silence Quest or something like that? Well, at least as far as I can usually say about this, other than that, but even then, I think the best way to deal with this right there, as you can see right there, is the forms of able to use the Rush Coil until you're able to actually decide to use that. But again, you're probably not going to waste it too much because as you can see right there, I keep on falling off to the actual invisible pitfalls, which these robots attempt to able to actually just try to create some of those platforms, as you can see right there. And also doesn't help with these little jerk-off right there. This mouse able to try to attack me whenever I was starting to able to launch myself upwards. So that's a bit of annoying right there, but even then, that's the only obstacle I need to get used to. So, and yeah, that's as far as I can usually tell by that part. So, anyways, let's go ahead and deal with this particular jerk-off right there. Even though I've always, what's kind of strange is the fact that we always attempt to call this particular robots, whenever they got shields on them, we always attempt to call him Jerk-Off for some reason. I know it does have its own name, but I haven't really memorized every single enemies in this game, to be honest. Just like in the forms of the Sonic the Hedgehog games, basically, when it comes to badniks and all that stuff. So that's as far as I can usually say about this for the most part. So here we go, onto this particular mini-boss fight once again. Very similar to the likes of how you fight him, but in forms of Hornet Man stage, except it's on Dr. Wily stage 2. So yeah, that's how it usually goes for those little particular points noticing. So, and also, how the fact of the matter is though, is that I think it has the exact same level length as how it does in the forms of well, King Fortress stages in the forms of Mega Man and Bass, is that well, excluding for the likes of well, I don't know. So anyways though, let's go ahead and go down here, and we actually come towards the forms of the water sections here. So even though I definitely notice the fact that a lot of people seem to get a lot of trouble with this particular area, because, well, we'll get to that as soon as we're able to actually eventually approach to it, because even then, all you have to do is basically we need to time our jumps at the right point until you're able to actually don't touch the spikes, which even then, well actually before we get to this however though, there's actually an energy tank right underneath there, but you have to be extremely right on with your jump skills and whatnot, because if you jumped a little bit too little, well, especially if you jump too late, then you're probably not going to make it, and plus you'll die instantly with spikes. So I still have no idea how I have a hard time trying to deal with these little spike bombs enemies like this. But even then, as far as I can usually say about this, as far as anything to doubt. So now with these blocks, you have to we need to use the light trident right here, in case we need to able to actually just to proceed or progress. So even then, that makes it a little bit more obvious for this point. So I believe the hardest part about this section right there is this particular jump. Now, if you don't jump at the right points, then you're just able to actually go ahead and kill yourself, obviously, and you have to restart where the checkpoint is. I mean, that is just a really tight-ass jump. I mean, as far as I can usually say about this, other than that, so. And also, because of how the fact that there's too many enemies all over the place, which even then, that can always disrupt your progression. Especially noticeable how the fact that it doesn't help how the fact that the knockback usually exists once again. At least I was really hoping there was going to be a Super Belly or something like that ever since Mega Man 8, and especially noticeable for Mega Man and Bass. But unfortunately though, we need to be able to deal with the knockback occurrence once again, especially for this point here. And yeah, as far as I can usually just say about this other than that, and yeah. I guess there's not much else I can really say about this point, to be honest with you guys, other than, the forms of Super Mario Party, that, the one time that Buttercup always attempted to mention about this, and during the likes of the Mega Man and Bass playthrough, at least to be more specifically, the Mega Man's playthrough of the game, so far, how the fact of the matter is, though, is that Super Mario Party might actually be one of the only Nintendo Switch games that it will not able to actually support the Switch Pro controller, because the game's main focus of the controls-wise is the Joy-Cons themselves, at least ever since in 1-2 Switch, ever since about a year ago now, so even then, I don't mind about it too much, and I believe also, snippet clips also, but even then, that's as far as I can usually say about this other than that, so. Anyways though, we reached at this very end right there, and we can able to actually take on the next boss in the forms of the Dr. Wily Capsule levels. And before we do this, however though, I might as well able to kill myself yet again, because there's no way I can able to deal with this particular boss with a little bit of health left yet again. Seriously, how many times we gonna have to deal with this kind of stuff? When? What is this? When we get to Mega Man 10, that, you know, it'll expect you able to actually do some more out of it. So, anyway. So, I believe the next boss in the forms of, you know, Dr. Wily Capsule Stage's boss fights department we have is the Mega Mech Shark, which I'm assuming that's just what his name is. Yeah, it's the Mega Mech Shark. Now, this particular boss has 3 phases. The first phase, all you have to do is basically we need to use the Light Trident. Actually, between the Light Trident is the fact that we need to use the Light Trident in the forms of 2 segments. Like, one of them is actually forms of the back, and the second phase is the forms of the actual turret section right there. And basically, his weakness on that segment is the forms of the Magma Bazooka, which if you manage to aim this thing at the right point, then you would able to actually just a classify table to actually deal the amount of damage with the forms of these pop-up turrets and stuff like that. So, well, to be more accurately, the forms of the actual opening, you know, turrets or anything else like that. So, yeah, it's not too bad though. But you have to be very careful though, because I can assume that may actually be spikes on top of him, so... And the final phase is the fact that his weak 2 is the forms of light tridents, so all to do is basically we need to aim this laser cannon part for his mouth, and then if you're able to actually aim this thing at the right shot, then you would able to actually just classify, you would able to just finish him off. You know, not that bad of a boss fight though, other than if you're assuming if you're actually going to be using your energy tank in the first place. So, anyways though, boom! And there goes the Mega Mech Shark. So, yeah, that's 2 stages down, and only, well, we've only got 2 more stages left. Just like any forms of how it does it in any other Mega Man game at this point. So, in fact, Dr. Wily's Capsule in Mega Man 9 almost feels a bit almost identical as the likes of how it does in Mega Man 2, but except it does have this little more add-ons they actually just add on, but it forms of the satellite system or something like that. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm just making things up. So here we go with Dr. Wily Stage 3, and this is what the main gimmick about this level is all about, is the fact that if we go all the way from here, then we actually come towards these new forms of these weird imagery elevator sequences, which means you cannot maneuver yourself from left to right. All you have to do is just basically we need to use the Mega Buster to able to actually steer Mega Man from left or right. So even then though, you have to keep doing that, or else you get yourselves your momentum going. So, kind of weird at first, but hey, as long as you get your accuracy going, especially noticeable if you're getting used to with this particular system, then you would able to be fine with this. Other than that, yeah, that's what you can usually just try to say about this for the most part. So for the most part though, Dr. Wily Stage 3, it's not too difficult, but you have to be very careful with obviously spikes, and also behavior, enemy contact, and also body forms of this elevator sequences, because it's not so bad on this first part, because I guess soon you can also manage to able to actually just manage to do this weird thing. You can able to actually just bypass this elevator sequences within without touching your controller, which even then, I don't know if I actually tested that out, but even then, I'm also able to do that on my PlayStation 3 version, but I'm probably not going to do that right about now, because even then, I'm almost able to concentrate on the forms of this stage in particular. So, anyways, let's go ahead and reveal ourselves the forms of Mega Man Bazooka right there. And yes, just like any forms of how it does it, any forms of, as you can clearly tell, that much like any forms of ever since Mega Man 6, you're able to actually just still manage to continue your Dr. Wily's Castle experience within one single sitting. So, yeah, it's nothing like how it does in the forms of Mega Man 7 and 8, and even Mega Man and Base, that you can able to actually take a break for a few seconds, segments noticing, and you weren't able to actually buy something when you before you jump into the forms of those stages. But that's not the case for Mega Man 9 though, regrettably, but even then, that's just how I think it is. So, but I don't mind about it too much. From here, this is where we actually gonna come towards the forms of these dangerous spikes there, as you can clearly see, and this is what the actual adjustment aiming of the forms of Mega Man, Mega Buster shots will come to play. And it's also the forms of that mystery tank, right at the very end of that particular sequence, as you can see right there. And as for me, nope, I'm probably not going to get it. Which, that's fine, because I've already got one of those mystery tanks thanks to the forms of the actual shop. So even then, not too bad, not too shabby either. So let's get our extra life back. And we can able to actually just to guarantee about the fact that the matter is, though, we've almost nearly towards the end of it, though. So, alright, so... In fact, I believe, well, we're almost nearly towards the end though, other than we need to be able to actually come towards those particular cannons, especially noticeable with bottomless pits, and pretty much everything else in this stage we're able to actually just, well, trying to able to actually know if you're ranking on stuff like that, so, including this little jerk-off enemy over there. Yeah, I keep saying that. Anyways. So yeah, for the most part, this stage is not too bad, unlike any forms of how it does in that precise jump, any forms of in Dr. Wily Stage 2, so even then, though, that could expect that much, so... Anyways, though, usually because of how the way the fact of the matter is, though, is the fact that Dr. Wily's set of stages might be a lot easier than the likes of how it does it in, the ones in Mega Man 8 sometimes, or not so much in Mega Man 8, but in forms of King Fortress stages in Mega Man and Base, because now you can able to actually get yourselves energy tanks instead of like, although Eddie can help you out in Mega Man's playthrough, but Base doesn't have any healing items, none whatsoever, which even then that just makes it a little bit more trickier for him when it comes to dealing with boss fights and stuff. So, anyways, folks, we're gonna be hitting on to this next boss fight right there. But in forms of the Dr. Wily set of stages, we have the Twin Devil. Jeez, the Devil Twins? Huh, that makes it a little bit more of a duo or something like that. So his weakness is the forms of the black hole bomb, and if you actually aim this thing at the right point, then you would able to actually deal the amount of damage until he forms of the Twin Devil. Well, he only has like one eye, so even then though, sometimes you actually just manage to traverse through different devil bodies and stuff like that, or different bubbles. So even then, that's all he does. Or sometimes you actually occasionally manage to swap out the forms of these different bodies and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of like the Yellow Devil and the Yellow Devil Mark II from both Mega Man 1 and especially Mega Man 3, and even especially noticeable by the forms of well, a little bit, but in forms of the Green Devil from Mega Man 8. Whilst in the forms of Mega Man and Base, that, well, the Green Devil is a total pushover. Which, because of, you know, the intro stage and stuff like that, especially if you ever played that particular boss fight with Base. So, as long as you actually get your aiming accuracy shots on the black hole bomb, then you would able to actually demolish the Twin Devil, no problem. But, it kind of feels like the exact same pattern as far as how it does it in Yellow Devil, 1, and especially with Yellow Devil Mark II, from, you know, Mega Man 3. So, that I digress, that concludes Dr. Wily's Stage 3, and now we're going to be continue on and move on to, let's just say, the final stage in the game. So I can't believe we're actually at the very end of the game already. Jeez. But first of all, let's go ahead and stock up more of those weapon energy, but in forms of the black hole bomb. And also, we might as well be able to actually just use the, well, the Mega Buster for the most part though. And yeah, I don't know how you can able to actually get rid of those lasers. I know there's actually a weapon that you can able to use to able to actually just manage to stop those lasers to begin with. Which, by the forms of it though, it might be actually be something to do with the concrete shots. Even then. Although, I will admit though, I might as well be able to save the concrete shots when we actually get into the forms of the next room after this. So even then though, that's okay though, because we got ourselves a little bit of health there. In addition to these whole bunch of weapon energy. And in addition to that though, that as soon as we get to all the way down to the bottom, then you guys should know what to expect. And let's go ahead and deal with this little enemy over there. And yeah, you know, we can't able to reach up there. Other than that, we can simply just able to use the concrete shot. That way, it should able to block the laser, although I did not meant to aim this thing lowly. But other than that, there's actually one up over there, but I'm probably not going to get it because I've already maxed out on extra lives. So, anyways, let's use the Rush Jet here for the final time for Mega Man 9. Well, until we get to Mega Man 10, that, well, things should be able to actually get familiar at this point. So anyways, let's go ahead and fill ourselves the concrete shot. And then everything's all accounted for, really. Especially noticeable with the actual weapons themselves. Other than we can able to actually use the mystery tank after we're able to actually deal with all 8 Robot Masters Rematch. So, yeah, just like how it does it for previously, we can able to actually deal with all 8 Robot Masters yet again. And, you know how the weakness was actually going to turn out. It's basically the exact same weaknesses as far as the actual main Robot Master matches all by itself. And just like before, you can able to actually get yourselves the forms of these healing items ever since in Mega Man 8. So, about time actually, because unlike the forms of Mega Man and Base, you do need to able to deal with the forms of a lot of platforming before you're able to take on the next Robot Master selection, which is kind of tough and stingy at the same time. But I digress. So that concludes the Galaxy Man. And now let's go ahead and move on to the next Robot Master rematch. We have, speaking of Concrete Man, here it is right here. So even then, let's go ahead and quickly switch over to the forms of Light Tendrons right there. Honestly, I found the Concrete Man is a lot more difficult sometimes. Most notably because he's way too fast and pretty unpredictable to dodge his concrete shots sometimes. And then also at the same time that he just moves all over the place sometimes. But, hey, at least we did manage to finish him off at least. So, Anyways, though, let's move on to the next. So, I'm assuming here, the next robot master is gonna be, Splash Woman, because, well, first of all, we're in underwater, and, let's go and quickly switch over to the forms of, Hornet Chaser, because that's her weaknesses. So, because we keep on saying hers, because, well, she's a female, so, I can't believe we now finally got ourselves, well, the forms of the female robot master for once. Well, we don't know if the forms of Mega Man 11 will actually bring us to the forms of the next woman robot master, but we'll definitely find things out during that time. But if not, then we'll be able to actually stuck with the basics. So, anyways, now let's go and move on to Drawman, and obviously Black Hole Bomb will able to do the job. And, although there's actually a technique and you can actually perform, as you can probably tell by the forms of the Twin Devil boss fight, you can able to actually pause the game, and then you would able to actually use that Black Hole Bomb rapidly. So even then though, you can able to actually do that method. So, it's very cool though. So, I believe we're in the halfway point of this particular boss rush already. And the next one is going to be Hornet Man, and now we got himself his weakness. I think it was actually, sorry, is the forms of Magma Bazooka, which even then, if you manage to able to aim the shots well enough, then you would able to actually just go ahead and deal with the amount of damage to the forms of, you know, Hornet Man. So, there he goes. I found Hornet Man to be a lot easier to start things off with in the forms of Robot Masters, unlike in the forms of Snake Man, that it can be very unpredictable to dodge sometimes. Anyways though, so the next one we have is Magma Man, so let's go ahead and equip the Tornado Blow, and we can able to actually just deal the insane amount of damage to this particular Magma Man. And since I've run out of ammo to the forms of that particular Tornado Blow, let's finish him off with the Mega Buster. So, there he goes. And let's move on to the next. So, this is going to be Tornado Man, because, well, you see the spikes on the ceiling. So, we'll go ahead and deal with him. So, let's go and switch the Plug Ball, so that way we can deal with his weakness. So, even then, it's not too bad of a, not that big of a challenge to this whatsoever, but even then, that's as far as I can say about this here other than that. But you have to be watch out though, and that's why I get for able to actually just deal with him. But that's okay though, because even then though, they can able to actually respawn onto this point right there. So even then though, unlike in the forms of how it does in Mega Man and Base, that you have to restart the platforming section all over again before you're able to actually deal with the forms of the Robot Master matches. So, kind of a shame really, but even then though, at the same time, it gets a little bit... Good lord! What is wrong with me today? Hi. I don't know why I died so many, twice in the forms of Tornado Man, to be honest. What makes it a little bit difficult though is the fact that you need to be exactly right on with your jump sometimes. Which I think that's what makes this boss fight somewhat a little bit tricky than the likes of any other Robot Masters in the game. But, I don't know, I think it's most likely because of my lack of skill sometimes, which even then that can get some consumption going. So anyways, let's go ahead and just finish him off completely, and... oh shoot. Okay, good. Whew, that only took me 3 attempts on that one. Okay then, so obviously the last Robot Master Rematch we got to face off against, and that will have to be, well, Plugman. And as usual, we'll go ahead and use the Joel Satellite. So even then though, easily one of the best shield weapons in the entire Classic Series period. Well, at least if you're able to actually run something like Huge or Tough, whenever you're trying to able to actually notice something, it disappears every once in a while. And yeah, that concludes all 8 Robot Masters Rematch, and as usual, we'll go ahead and use the Mystery Tank, much like the forms of Mega Man 5, which not only refuels your health, but also the weapon energy as well. So yeah, there's nothing too much to discuss there. I do know there's also other weapons by the forms that I can able to use, such as Beat the Bird or the Energy Saver, but honestly, I think we're almost nearly towards the end, so I'm probably not going to buy those items too much. So, here we go, into the forms of the final battle in the forms of Mega Man 9, which we have Wily Machine number 9. I will admit though right away, this is probably one of my least favorite incarnations of the forms of the Wily Machine type of, you know, models, because all you have to do in this particular first phase, you need to able to actually constantly need to use the Mega Buster until you're able to actually reflect the actual bomb ball right onto its mouth, and even then, that's the only weakness you can able to deal with. And as soon as we're done with that, Assuming if you actually get your aiming shots well enough, then we're going to move on to the next section, which even then, his weakness is the forms in the phase 2 anyway. His weakness is the forms of concrete shot, and as long as you're able to actually aim this thing at the right point onto its mouth, and then if you manage to aim this thing at well enough, assuming if you don't waste your weapon energy to your disposal with the concrete shot, and it might be very tricky though, or even then the first phase is kind of annoying, especially noticeable how the fact that, well, you need to able to actually use the balls to able to actually bounce off to him, but nothing compares to Wily Capsule 7 though. I know what Rarity's gonna say about the fact that yeah, she might find it still a little bit challenging for her though. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish him off, and if you think that the boss fight was going to be over, well, as soon as we actually get Smash able to finish him off, and boom! If you think this boss fight is over, well, we still got one more phase to deal with, so let's go ahead and just get ourselves our energy tank going on, and the way we go on to the forms of, as we expected, the Wily Capsule itself. So, of course, his weakness is the forms of the plug ball, if you're assuming if you actually aim this thing at the right point, and as usual, most likely the forms of Mega Man 7, and especially noticeable for pretty much any other Mega Man games final boss-wise, is the fact that I found these projectiles to be a lot more difficult to avoid sometimes, most notably because of the unpredictable movements and stuff. But apart from that though, as soon as you're able to deal with these, this particular final boss within a little bit of damage right there, and I think this might be a final time we're going to be using the energy tanks in, you know, in Mega Man 9. So, but that's fine, because even then though, that he's almost down for good. So even then though, let's go ahead and just finish him off. Oh shoot. So yeah, that's to be expected from any other Mega Man game, that Dr. Wily is up to no good for the 10th time in a row so far, when it comes to the classic Mega Man industries. Well, at least as far as I've noticed something, in the forms of the actual Mega Man and base game on the Bandai WonderSwan game, Dr. Wily is not the main villain on that particular title, which is kind of odd. Oh, just a little bit of health left, come on! There's always the fact that with a little bit of health left syndrome, but there we go. So that concludes Dr. Wily Machine 9 in addition to, well, Dr. Wily's Capsule. So now we've actually obtained the forms of the actual circuit, memory circuit board, and we'll watch the ending. So please forgive me for about the 10th time in a row. I want you to see something, Wily. This is where you first went wrong. That was for Mega Man 1. Then this time, that's for Mega Man 2. That's Mega Man 3. And this time, Mega Man 4. And this time, Mega Man 5. And this time, Mega Man 6. And this time, and Mega Man 7. And this time, Mega Man 8. And this time, including Mega Man and Base. And this time. So yeah, that's a very interesting you know, flashbacks and the previous Mega Man adventures and stuff like that. So you beat me again. Well, which is undeniably true, mind you, Dr. Wily. I should tell you, there's something I was hiding from you. What is it? Dr. Light was taken away by the police. Was he not? That wasn't a real officer. It was a fake police robot. Oh, isn't it? Okay. I created Dr. Light is in the next room, but he fell ill. So he's sleeping now. Now you have to hurry and get him to the hospital this way. Dr. Light! We got ourselves this familiar whistle. We have Proto Man. Hey, what's up? You are a fool. It's a trap. That's the Dr. Light robot Wily used to make that fake video. It may be, but if that's the real Dr. Light, then I have to help him. Naive as always. Do what you want then. Okay, fine be that way. And of course, it's a fake all along, so I know this would have happened. So long, Mega Man. You will be destroyed along with this castle. And of course, Dr. Wily's got away once again. And yeah, as you might expect all to, so... I'm glad that wasn't Dr. Light, but that poor robot. And soon enough, there comes Proto Man. Looks like you need my help. Again. To be expected for that, Proto Man, that's how I think it is. Mega Man has once again put a stop to Dr. Wily's evil plans. Dr. Light was found to be innocent of all wrongdoing and was able to return to his laboratory. The future holds the promise of peace for the people of Earth. Dr. Wily, however, was nowhere to be found. Let me guess, until we get to Mega Man 10, that, Mega Man, you know, Dr. Wily may be able to actually do something completely different for once. So, anyways though, overall, Mega Man 9, a very welcoming returning to the forms of the classic Mega Man games we all know and love, like the same 8-bit settings, just like how it does in Mega Man 6. And, for the most part though, everything else in Mega Man 9 is simply fantastic and phenomenon. And, despite the absence of the forms of these missing movesets ever since during the likes of in Mega Man 4, that with the forms of the Mega Buster Charge Shot has been absent, and especially notable with the forms of the sliding maneuvering, then, to be honest, I think I might actually be okay with that, because even then though, it feels like the exact same challenge of how it does it in the forms of Mega Man 2, but, because of the actual development cycle, so even then though, that makes it a little bit more delightful anyway, so... In this credit sequence, as you can see right there, it shows us the forms of Robot Masters once again. And this time they actually did showcase the every single enemies of this game offers. In addition to the forms of well, some of these Robot Masters. Oh yeah, they did show us the forms of the actual enemies from their prospective Robot Masters levels. So that's very interesting altogether. So even though that yeah, it's a very cool way to able to actually show off the forms of those particular images of the forms of that particular Robot Masters, what they're doing this time. So yeah, it's a very interesting take. So, as we expected, the story is, well, it's just Dr. Wily's up to no good again for the 10th time in a row, and as we expected for any other classic Mega Man games we all know existence. The gameplay is still fun though. It's way more, well balanced when it comes to difficulty and stuff like that, unlike in the forms of how it does in Mega Man and Base. For the Game Boy Advance version at least, it's so agonizingly difficult sometimes. But at least in Mega Man 9, I feel the difficulty is somewhat a bit of a middle of the road. But it does have some pretty cheap moments here and there. But apart from that though, it's not that much of a challenge though whatsoever, aside from those missing movesets from the forms of Mega Man 3 and 4 and onwards. But apart from that though, until we get to Mega Man 11, both of those movesets will make its own returning, including the likes of the newest addition by the forms of the double gear system. Which, again, we'll actually decide to able to actually go ahead and try out the demo of the game, but even then though, until, you know, next month anyway though. And the visual still looks absolutely fantastic, especially as on the 8-bit rendition. And also the soundtrack is pretty sweet stuff as well. And the weapons in the forms of Mega Man 9 might actually be one of the series' best weapons usage in the entire classic series period. Because my favorite ones will have to be the dual satellite, because even then though, it never seems to disappear if you actually run into something like huge or tough. But even then though, that can really appreciate it with this stuff. So and also controls once again still is very flawless, and not too many issues with the forms of control delays and stuff like that. So yeah, that concludes Mega Man 9 Let's Play, ladies and gentlemen. So this is me, Knuckles the Echidna here, from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And join us next time by the forms of the last Mega Man game to be on the entirety of Mega Man Marathon. Mega Man is going to be tackling through Mega Man 10. So, wow, I cannot believe we actually reached at the very end of the actual month already. So, hope you guys do enjoy it, and see you guys then for the 10th game in this series. So see you guys then. Bye.